Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us. It might still take a couple of minutes for people to join us. Just to let you know, we are recording this event, and if you would like to turn on closed captions, you can do that at the bottom of your screen. They might not be perfect, of course, but they might be helpful for some people. At the end of the talk, there will be the opportunity for participants to ask questions. You can do that by typing in the Q&A, and I'll remind you of that at the end. So some participants have joined us now, so we will make a start. So thank you very much, everybody, for coming. I'm Professor Esther McIntosh. I'm the Director of the Centre for Religion and Society at York St John University. And it is my pleasure to welcome Professor Sebastian Kim, who used to be my colleague here. Sebastian Kim is now at the Fuller Seminary in America, which he joined in 2017. He was previously the chair in Theology and Public Life here at York St John, and also a former director of the Centre for Religion in Society. And before joining York St John, Sebastian Kim was the director of Christianity in Asia, and he taught World Christianity at the Faculty of Divinity in the University of Cambridge, as well as having taught at Union Biblical Seminary in India, and as having served as the interim director of the Henry Martyn Centre and Henry Martyn Lecturer at the Cambridge Theological Federation. Sebastian Kim's current position is Interim Dean of the School of Mission and Theology and Academic Dean for the Korean Studies Centre and Robert Wiley Professor of Renewal in Public Life at Theological Seminary. In terms of Professor Kim's scholarship, his interests include public theology, world Christianity, Asian theologies, and theology and peacebuilding. He's the author of A History of Korean Christianity, Theology in the Public Sphere, Public Theology as a Catalyst for Open Debate, In Search of Identity, Debates on Religious Conversion in India, and Christianity as a World Religion. He's also an editor of the Companions of Public Theology, Cosmopolitanism, Religion and the Public Sphere, Building Communities of Reconciliation, Reflections on the Life and Teaching of Reverend Kyung-Chik Han, and Christian Theology in Asia. And Sebastian is also a fellow of the Royal Asiatic Society, an executive committee member of the Global Network for Public Theology, and former editor of the International Journal of Public Theology. And currently, Sebastian's work is on polarization, which is the topic of his talk for us today, Polarization, a Theological Challenge. Sebastian, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you. It is my privilege and joy to participate in this seminar, and it is nice to be back to York St John. Well, it's not physically, but yes, in the seminar. And thank you, Professor Esther McIntosh, for organizing this seminar and for inviting me. I would like to bring greetings from Fuller Seminary in Pasadena, California. We have 43 regular faculty members and over 120 affiliate faculty members in the School of Mission and Theology. So currently I'm interim dean, so you can imagine kind of busy dealing with the issues here. I also would like to bring greetings from the members of the Executive Committee of the Global Network for Public Theology. GMPT has about 50 institutional members based in universities and seminaries around the world. So we have triennial conferences, and the next one will be at Fuller Seminary in September 2025 on the theme of Scripture in the Public Square, and you are all warmly invited. Now, there is a phrase, where the rubber meets the road, which refers to the moment when the action really begins, when you really get serious, or when theory becomes reality. That could be a moment of generating constructive and creative energy, or it could be a situation where friction and destructive power prevail. Where the rubber meets the road is the public sphere, where theology must engage and where theology must struggle together with others, even though it may be muddy and messy. Now, when we talk about the public sphere, especially in the US context, polarization is one of its most challenging problems. You may be following the news of the US presidential elections. Well, here, everything is related to the presidential elections. If you watch the news, familiar names, Trump, Biden, kind of rematch, and numerous court cases. And even recent days, you have a student demonstration in the university campuses. So when you watch Fox News and CNN, you may think that as if you are in the parallel world, is totally different perspective and views. However, this phenomenon of polarization is not unique to USA, but in so many countries, as we are expecting major elections in 64 countries in this year, and that is about half of the people in the world. So you can imagine lots of changes and discussions and debates are going on. Currently, as you know, the Indian general election is going on. So the year 2025, some people said that as a de-election year. Now, on the basis of survey in USA context, survey on political polarization in the American public, the Pew Research Center concluded that partisanship doubled in 20 years from 1994 and 2014, and it continues. So did a highly negative view of the opposition party. For example, to the question about whether the opposition party's policies are so misguided that they threaten the nation's well-being, the answer was 27% of Democrats and 37.6% of Republicans said yes. And in 2019, the Pew Center warned that the party allegiance continues to be the dividing line and the biggest factor in American public's political attitudes and values, far surpassing differences by age, race, and ethnicity, gender, education, and religious affiliation. Again, in a survey done in 2020, just before the last presidential election, the question was asked whether if the other wins, it would result in lasting harm to the country. 89% of Trump supporters and 90% of Biden supporters responded yes. And then in a survey done in 2020, 63% of the Americans are either not confident or not confident at all in the future of the US political system. So in fact, the gap between the party supporters was far wider than in any other country surveyed. So the commentator asserted that, I quote, America is exceptional in the nature of its political divide, unquote. So indeed, polarization has been a major concern for scholars of political science in the USA for the last 30 years. Scholars argue that American politics are seriously polarized. There is a loss of moderates on both sides, and that this is a complex process closely related to the American society, racial and ethnic identity, and economy. Scholars are raising concerns and even warning of a tipping point that may lead to serious consequences not only in political life, but also in every area of public life. Now, the question comes then, does polarization always carry destructive consequences? Not necessarily. Most democracies have a system of two or more parties that provides checks and balances in their policymaking and power sharing. It is far better to have two opposing parties or multiple parties than a one-party system or a dictatorship. I hope we all agree with that. It is vital for a healthy democracy that anyone can express their own ideological position and form a group with like-minded people to make their views become reality. Polarization in this sense energizes the electorate and stimulates political participation. In fact, holding and pursuing different views should be respected and encouraged in any society, and political polarization itself is not a problem. In Chinese philosophy, the concept of yin-yang has been a complex meaning of harmony through careful balance of duality in daily life and by opposite forces being interconnected. Although there are tendencies to emphasize either duality or unity, therefore there has been misuse of this concept to oppose the other. Nevertheless, the deep principle of this concept has been the harmonious, interconnected, complementary, and interdependent nature of daily life. So polarization in the yin-yang sense generates wholeness and results in a constructive outcome. So it seems that we could say, and my argument here is that there is a constructive polarization that promotes different views, and by positive interactions and debates will result in an integrated approaches to issues facing the society. On the other hand, we see a destructive polarization that has negative results. And it seems that the constructive polarization often turns into the destructive polarization. And that's often scholars talk about the tipping point, and we should prevent this. So I would like to argue my case here. Then when does polarization become a problem? There are many situations, but here I would like to identify three main symptoms of destructive polarization. First, uncritical and blind support of one's own group or party and rejection of others' views. The term party politics and identity politics can be applied in all areas of public life, in that people form their own groupings and consolidate them with positive affirmations, and in turn, they reject other groups with all sorts of negative associations. That's stereotyping. And members are expected to toe the party line and conform to the same mode of thinking, aspirations, and pursuits. So some groups come to hold an exclusive attitude in that they do not regard the other's views as simply different. So not only just as simply different, but as inferior, wrong, harmful, or even evil. In this case, people may read or listen to the other side, but it doesn't change their minds. It actually deepens their certainty. So for example, Trump supporters, when they watch CNN news, they don't normally change their views. They just confirms confirms that their typical views about these so-called liberals. Often politics are so entwined with the people's identity that people take it very personally when they engage in political discussions. Second, refusing to engage with each other and treating others' views as unacceptable contribute to destructive polarization. We may hold strong convictions, but if we regard the other's idea as so wrong that you do not see any value in negotiating, it becomes a problem. If moderates are vanishing and two parties are pulled so far apart that they refuse to compromise or negotiate, then there is a stalemate, paralysis, and inability to move forward. In this case, you have to win the election at all costs, since you do not see possibility of solving problems by negotiation. This destructive polarization leads to balkanization, which is political fragmentation, resulting in multiple polarizations that leads to social disintegration. A third symptom of destructive polarization is trying to change or eliminate others. Winning elections is not enough. You wish to go further to correct others by all means, since you believe they are in the wrong. Here, polarization becomes very ugly. We have witnessed this type of extreme polarization throughout history in the form of genocide, slavery, colonization, war, racial attacks, apartheid, and many other forms of aggression. It generates a vicious circle in which it is no longer possible to coexist with the other because you refuse to acknowledge the validity of the other's identity and aspirations. Some scholars talk about how, when people are not aware of the seriousness of polarization, the circle spins out of control and leads to violence that has devastating consequences. Now, I'm not suggesting that in the face of evil, for example, in the form of slavery or Nazism, we should avoid confrontation. But my argument is that as far as possible, we work to prevent such destructive polarization taking hold in the first place. Well, perhaps Christianity is above all this destructive polarization, since a central affirmation of Christian faith is that the Church of God is Catholic or universal, and that the Christian message is one of reconciliation. But I'm sure that you would agree with me that this is not the case in reality. In fact, we have to admit that the Church has been a major contributing factor in destructive polarization and a cause of conflicts throughout the history. Too often, religion has promoted an us versus them attitude, as with the Greeks and the barbarians, the Jews and the Gentiles, the Muslims and the infidels, the Christians and the pagans, the true faith and the heretics, the good people, us, and the bad, them. Christian theology has tended to see the world in a polarized perspective: creator versus creation, human versus divine, good versus evil, right versus wrong, saved versus unsaved, sacred versus profane, and the church versus the world. So there are many attempts to deal with the destructive polarization, and among them, I would say, is public theology. Public theology is a relatively new theological discourse that holds that Christian theology can offer complementary or supplementary approaches and even alternative solutions to the very complex issues facing society today. The key word for public theology is public conversation, contributing to the formation of personal decisions and collective policymaking in the economic, political, religious, and social realms. I would say that public theology tries to be a catalyst for generating action where the rubber meets the road. So in what way might public theology address the particular problem of destructive polarization? This is my current research project, and I would like to deal with the various different approaches here. And perhaps the first part of my book project, I would like to make a serious critique on theology, the theological tendency to promote polarization. I mentioned some of the contradicting ones, but also in theology, we have various different polarizations. For example, sacred and secular spheres, and justice and peace issue, righteousness and justice issue, kingdom of God and the church, and so on and so forth. And also, I'm not trying to suggest an easy answer since we have a limited time here, but I would like to put forward 4 of directions, and I have been exploring. So first, the concept of wisdom in the Bible could be a vital methodological tool to address destructive polarization. The wisdom tradition, as you may know, both in the Hebrew Bible and in the parables of Jesus, is the result of practical and pragmatic advice from sages, which is grounded in God and in His presence, but is not limited to it in its scope and application. According to Gerhard von Rad, the purpose of the wisdom tradition was for instructing people to discern good from evil, to choose good, and then to act upon one's decision in order to bring about a concrete result. One example of the application of shared wisdom in contemporary society is the way that Archbishop Desmond Tutu integrated the African tradition of Ubuntu, I am who we are, with the Apostle Paul's teaching of reconciliation of Jews and Gentiles by the cross of Christ in Ephesians chapter 2. He persuaded the South African population not to espouse evil in the form of violence, but to do good by seeking truth and working for reconciliation. A second tool is utilizing the theology of the common good in our daily practice. The idea of the common good takes Jesus' commandment to love other neighbors to imply that our treatment towards the most vulnerable is the moral test of any society's integrity. It has been very much discussed in the recent years in both among Protestant and Catholic public theologians. The common good involves the rejection of the extremes of individualism and collectivism, a challenge to utilitarian approach of a majoritarian view, and a vision for a politics of consensus to reach a maximum agreement to the advantage for all. And Jim Willis described the common good as a vision drawn from the heart of our religious traditions that allows us to make our faith public, but not narrowly partisan. And third, Christian theology of the Trinity provides a basis for overcoming some of the dichotomies of Christian theology and the wider world. The nature of Jesus as a fully divine and fully human bridges the divine-human divide, and because it puts all human beings in the same category, overcomes the toxic division of us and them. Furthermore, the Trinitarian model enables us, according to my colleague at Fuller, Veli-Matti Kakainen, to see God God not as a bi-unity of the Father and Son, but as an internal fellowship of divine hospitality in which we are all invited. Fourth, and finally in this paper, but not least, in dealing with the destructive polarization, there should be more active engagement of theology in the discerning process of reading the signs of the time. And this requires theology to interact with other academic disciplines, as well as with the different bodies interacting in the public. I would particularly like to engage with various different colleagues in the different disciplines in this manner, in this topic. Charles Taylor, in his book, A Secular Age, suggests that communities meet in the public sphere on the basis of the principle of intercommunicating, and that this social imaginary is the key to developing modern society. Now, I would like to conclude by referring to the prophet Micah and the apostle Paul. Micah asked what is good and required by God, and then answered in the Micah chapter 6 and 8, verse 8, to do justice, to love kindness, and to walk humbly with your God. And the Apostle Paul talks about God entrusting us with the ministry of reconciliation in his 2 Corinthians chapter 5, verse 19. Being a reconciler is a daunting task in the age of polarization, in which we are urged to support our side, to show party solidarity, and to win others for our agenda. Being a reconciler does not mean taking a middle position and trying to negotiate between two competing ideas. It is not trying to find a compromise solution to please the majority. Rather, it is an active and conscious decision to cross boundaries, to reach out the other side, to make a bridge, to seek the common good, and to be at the place where the rubber meets the road. It is, as the prophet Micah presented to us, a process of discernment of what the spirit of justice, love, and above all, humility requires. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sebastian. You've given us much to think about there. For those in the audience, participants, you are welcome to type questions in the Q&A. Whilst you're gathering your thoughts, there are a number of places, Sebastian, where I thought you might have mentioned Palestine, given the specific things that you were saying. So this notion of where the rubber meets the road, we really are at that moment just now. Where we're watching this genocide unfold live streamed on our television, and people who've talked about social justice and decolonization, and now many of them remaining silent on this issue. And then when you talked about your 3 symptoms that are destructive of polarization, you did mention genocide and apartheid, but not this specific case. And I wondered if you could say a bit more about polarization in Christianity in relation to what's happening in Palestine. You know, so we know there's this particular genocide is tied up with Christian Zionism, and that there is Christian Zionist support in America for Israel rather than for the Palestinians. We know that when Donald Trump was president last time, he moved the embassy to Jerusalem and caused all sorts of problems in doing so. So I just wonder, and right now on our news screens, what we're watching is these student protests on campus, and then very heavy-handed policing being brought in to shut those down, not at all seeing the the building bridges that you've talked about, you know, in the reaching out and the dialogue. So I just wondered if you could say something about Christian Zionism and the polarization in Christianity in relation to those current events that we're watching.
Yeah, thank you for the question. Very complex question, but very timely and important question. Yes, of course, when the attack from Hamas happened, we all condemned that attack, very violent attack, and it's wrong, absolutely wrong. The killing innocent people and also kidnapping people. So that's the universally condemned. But over the months and the Israeli approach to people in Gaza has been very appalling, and we all also condemn that act. Of course, initially that was the response to the Hamas aggression, but it's gone far beyond military response. So we are all condemning that. Now you talk about the Christian Zionism and so on. Yes, it is a very complex issue. In the USA, people are openly still supporting Israeli military action. Now, often we have a difficulty of dividing this when you talk about or criticizing Israeli policies. We shouldn't treat that as anti-Semitic. And I think we do need to distinguish that when people criticizing Israeli policy, the government policy, and currently military action, that's clearly we are not part of, or we are not kind of alluding into the anti-Semitic approach. And therefore, it is justified to condemn the Israeli military operations in Gaza. Now, in the USA, yes, many of the right-wing Christians do support and do see Israel as a symbol of in many ways, kind of restoration of the God's kingdom and so on. There are so many literature about this, but people do believe that. So there is a very strong support from the US government. Is all integrated into the economics and finance and politics and the media also. So when it comes to the student demonstrations, again, it's a complex issue. But in my view, student demonstrations are justified. It is absolutely right for students to demonstrate. And again, media is kind of portraying that there are some kind of outside infiltrators and so on and so on. But the core of the demonstrations are the students, and both Jews and non-Jews. I mean, Jewish students also being part of these demonstrations. But it's very sad to see that the university authority allowed the police to come in. I think, as myself, I was part of the demonstrating against the military-backed government in the 1970s, 80s in Korea, South Korea. That was not acceptable as a university authority to allow police to come and arrest the students. That's the university campus is, I would say, that's the kind of sacred place that people can express their views. People can argue and discuss and debate. So that's very sad to see, in my view. Yeah.
Thank you, Sebastian. So we do have questions rolling in from our participants now. So, question from Mark Dawson: is public theology under threat because of the degraded nature of public discussion in these polarized times?
Yeah, that's a very good question also. Yes, I think the public theology is in a sense kind of relatively new discourse, but also public theology find it kind of being criticized from both sides. So for many conservative Christians find that public theology is compromising and is too liberal, or many liberal side, particularly people who are persuading the, let's say, liberation theology or political theology, they try to identify themselves with a side with the victims. So they want to make a kind of make it clear that your stance. So public theology is seen as kind of trying to stay in the middle and try to see the uh, um, common good out of this debate and discussions. So yes, it is our difficulties of persuading the ideas. Again, we have this kind of difference between the reforming position and the revolutionary position. I think both needed so for example, liberation theology has its strengths of challenging the status quo and then demanding and changes, regime change and so on. Whereas public theology tend to, I'm not saying that all the public theologians I take that position, but tend to be a more reforming position and to see the kind of reforming within the overall structure. That again is people find it not very satisfactory. But to me, I think I would like to see constantly debate and to discuss and to negotiate in order to find a common good, common solution, and rather than trying to pursue one side or the other, because the situation is not very simple, black and white. It is very complex.
Thank you. So next question, what would you say are the reasons behind why polarization and divisions have become so prevalent across the globe over the last few decades?
Yeah, yes, again, is a very good question. Yes, I mean, that's again, my struggle or my research. I'd like to find out why is the problem. As I said, we need to identify, we need to qualify that polarization. Not all polarizations are wrong, in my view. I think there are positive side of the polarization that is the healthy for the society is needed, and political polarization, yes, it is needed to have 2 or 3 parties to interact with each other and to check and balance. But as I argued my case, I think often the polarization become a kind of destructive because of this kind of consolidation of their own ideas and try not to negotiate. I think that's the kind of prevalent in the US context. People try to be together with the same ideas and listen to the same news and engaging with the same people in the similar people in the social media. So it tends to lead into the kind of segmented society, and they are convinced that they have a right position and so on, and then try not to listen to the other side. And I think that combination of those kind of political preference, political ideas, together with a religious fever, religious conviction, that makes quite a very strong case and very rigid, and therefore is more destructive. I would say very dangerous. Therefore, when we see the conservative Christians, I respect the position of the conservative Christians or their commitment to faith. But when it comes to that conservative faith with a political agenda, political preference, that becomes very destructive, the polarization. So there are so many different factors, and I think particularly when it comes to the party system, yes, in USA and many other countries, we have two kind of competing parties. And then when it comes to the support of the parties, you kind of lose the critical edge to your own party. I think that's also dangerous because you are blindly support. Let's say those who are supporting Trump, you can see that I'm not happy with that and that notion, but they have a kind of sees Trump as providing or the kind of fulfilling their own agenda. So how Trump sees the world, how Trump treated people, and also how Trump approach the goal, it doesn't really matter. I think that's quite a serious problem, because the goal, achieving the goal is important, but at the same time, how we achieve the goal, the process is also equally important. So we do need to have this critical edge. But I think the kind of two-party systems or kind of communalism and all these aspects, you tend to protect your own people, your own group, and you tend to discuss within that group. Therefore, you have so many others or the opposition party, and they are not relevant, or they are even evil or wrong. I think that becomes really problematic.
And this has maybe been heightened in recent decades by the financial crisis and then COVID. So because of the global financial crisis, if people are feeling, if they're struggling more financially, economically, then there's that attempt to sort of to blame other people, and so to become more entrenched in particular kind of narrow groups and ideologies perhaps. And then because that was then followed by COVID, we saw a similar thing with the pandemic, with particular, the British government kept talking about being world beating and world class. It wasn't at all talking about sharing the vaccine with the countries most in need, or the countries with the least resources. It became very nationalistic, and a much more, on the one hand, there was a reaching out of community on like a local level, with people delivering food parcels to neighbors and so on, but at the government level it felt like there was a kind of drawing away from global relations and becoming much more nationalistic.
Sure, yeah, that's right, absolutely. Yes, I think that's particularly in the US, it comes into the immigration policies.
Yeah,
That's a very, very hot topic here, and border and so on and so forth. It is in many ways a reality for many people who are struggling to meet their end meet here. So that for them, it's an immigrant issue, is a real issue. So I don't think we can just see that as a kind of problem. Yeah, it is a problem, but I think we do also need to understand people's in the ground. But again, this is the kind of wider picture that as you talk about pandemic issues and people's kind of livelihood was challenged, then they have to see the kind of way out. So it's not an easy issue, but at the same time, I think we do need to deal with that. And I think that's one of the things I may have some issues with the Biden government. The way Biden government deal with that is not sufficient. And I think they need to really tackle this issue, because it is the issue of the people in the daily life. Their life is threatened. So I think that we do need to deal with that. I don't have a time to discuss in details, but I do see that the present government need to tackle very seriously.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Same in the UK. There's a lot of anti-immigration rhetoric when the
Yeah.
government could be using their funds differently.
Mhm. Sure.
Okay. So, and a question from Alexander Dowding. How best can public theology be emphasized within society that is divided, and as you've spoken about, doesn't want to listen to the other?
Mhm. Yeah, I think that's a very good question. And I think we all need to work hard, not only just public theologians in theory, but I think church can play a very important role here to provide a forum to discuss. And I think the church also, of course, churches are divided, but still churches can provide a forum for discussion to expand their boundaries, and therefore we can constantly breach these dividing words. Again, that's my own research project. Church itself has that kind of tendency to divide into different groups or polarized situation. So I would like to say theologically, right and wrong, and how do we see kind of bridging these two polarized ideas? Because if you look at the more dedicated, very committed Christians also tend to have a very politically very divided idea. I'm not saying that all. So I just would like to identify or tease out what's the problem. How do we still have a deep faith, but at the same time open to the political discussions and social discussions? So I mean, I am in the Fuller, and the Fuller is known as Evangelical Seminary, but Fuller has been kind of holding the tradition of staying in the middle within the evangelical circle. So as we start, we rejected fundamentalism, and we also rejected liberal notion of the theology. But we are quite, in a sense, recently very squeezed, very small area, because it used to be a very good opportunity for us to embrace students and the faculty members from various sectors. But it's quite that gap is pretty narrow now. So I think in many ways, yes, we do need to deal with this issue is quite seriously. And I think I would really like to recommend to kind of read some articles on the public theology, how the public theology try to pursue the common good. And particularly Catholic social teaching has a very, very important contribution to make in this area of the pursuing the common good. So that it's not just a theory, but how can we implement the idea that the Catholic social teaching is promoting to our Christian world.
You mentioned when you were talking, Sebastian, about reaching out to other publics and other disciplines.
Mhm.
And you know, I know it's a common theme in public theology to talk about bilinguality and the need to sort of put theological terms in a different sort of language that people who aren't Christian or aren't religious can understand, in order to have that conversation with different publics and different disciplines. And I wondered if you could just say something about that. You know, when you talk about these concepts of wisdom and Trinity and so on, they can sound like very Christian concepts. So how does this then translate for people who maybe aren't Christian? How do you reach out to those other publics, those other disciplines?
Yeah, thank you for that question. Yes, I think that that's the privilege of public theology, and also kind of aim for the public theology. We try to interact with the various different disciplines, partly because, or largely because, that public theology try to engage in various issues. So public theologians do not have expertise in the particular fields. So you will have to engage with different disciplines. But again, when it comes to those engagement, I think one of the previous questions raised that other disciplines may not be quite keen to work with the theologians. Yes, I think that's the struggle we need to deal with that. But in many ways, I think church has been contributing to these discussions. For example, let's say ecological issues. I think Christian churches and theologians have been actively involved in that. And then when it comes to the, let's say, human sexuality issue, Christian theologians, of course, very much involved in that. Of course, within the Christian circle, we have a very different views, but nevertheless, I think Christian theology has contributed a great deal on that. And when it comes to peace and reconciliation, we talk with peace studies scholars and interact with that. And they have been quite a significant contributions to this peace movement and so on. So I think that there has been a great scope. But I think we public theologians need to really work it out how best we can interact with the different disciplines, because again, if we are not careful, we may just do not have things to contribute in the discussion. So we do need to develop our theological clarity on the issues, so on. But also at the same time, I think I would like to see, that's my kind of aim for looking at the polarization. I think I would like to look at the Christian theology itself, because the traditional Christian theology has been built in many ways in the this kind of polarized concepts, and also very much is the Western, interacting with the Western philosophy. And I would like to interact with the politics and economics, and also the lot of philosophies coming from the non-Western world. There are rich traditions, so I would like to interact with that. So I think that's quite exciting to see public theologians constantly engaging with other disciplines. Yeah.
Great, thank you, Sebastian. And on that note, I will just say it was you who set up the EBOR lectures here in York with that very purpose of engaging with a whole range of fields for the public to come and engage and think about and, you know, make decisions about creative solutions to issues in the world. And, you know, we have obviously during COVID, the EBOR lectures was somewhat fell by the wayside, but we have revamped those now. And our next EBOR lecture is next week, this time next week. And we have Professor Rupert Reed, former spokesperson of Extinction Rebellion and director of the Climate Majority Project, coming to talk about eco-spirituality. So, rediscovering a spiritual connection with the earth and developing earth hope and how that might help us through the climate crisis. So just to all of our participants, you're all very welcome. And Sebastian, do pass on the links to the EBOR lecture to your colleagues in Fuller. Sure. They are also very welcome. It is a hybrid event, so people can join online or in person. And we very much look forward to seeing many of you there. And Sebastian, thank you very much for today, for this very rich conversation and for sharing your work with us. When might we see the book on polarization in print?
Is coming, well, I think because I have to work as an interim dean by the end of June. So this summer I will dedicate my time. So sometime next year, hopefully, yes.
Well, we'll keep a lookout for that. Thank you very much, Sebastian, and thank you to the participants. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you.